that's one of the big issues for us, is we want to make sure that all 3 of our boys get to attend the same school while getting very specific individualized care towards their education. Another side of that is as we look at different schools, there are other different schools that we look at. We like the classical mindset. So something like TCA is something we've looked at. But coming up on 5 years, we enrolled him at TCA years ago. He's still 800 plus in line before he can get into that school. So that's another issue that we look at, and we think it's just, maybe it's time to have another option. Really all I have to say there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cortez, no? Okay, thank you. This District Accountability Committee review regarding the new Summit Charter Academy application. Now the District Accountability Committee, or DAC, through its parent chair, Mrs. Lori Udenberg, will present a summary of its review of the new Summit Charter Academy application. Mrs. Udenberg, please come before me.
Good evening. Lori Udenberg, co-chair of District Accountability, and I worked with a subcommittee of District Accountability people. We have a few here. Eldrick Hill and Jerry Farney are with us this evening. We also had Heather Cloninger and Centavia and Terry Kunkel were part of our committee. We accepted anybody from the DAC who wanted to come and review the charter application. And what we did for our review is, as we have done in the past, we used the rubric that you have seen us use before. And this rubric aligns to the statutory guidelines, as well as guidelines from the Charter School Institute, the Colorado League of Charter Schools, and the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. So we looked at several areas when we were going through the application review, starting with the required elements. The executive summary met standards. We noted there that in our comments section that a little more information on the personal education that the application mentions would be helpful. The vision and mission statement also meet standards, and we thought a little stronger statement of belief in that section would have been helpful to the application. In the goals, objectives, student performance standards, that section also met standards, and it was, we thought that a statement of to meet or exceed state performance averages would be good in that section, which we know is what they're aiming for. Evidence of support, we put a partially meets. It's hard right now without an actual charter. Working on intent to enrolls, we know that about 1 to 2 in 4 will actually enroll from intent to enrolls from past history with TCA. So we noted that in that section. And we also noted that this year TCA, even with their long waiting lists, they have been able to seat students in K through 2 this last year, and even had a few open seats in kindergarten. Their educational program, we put that meets standards, and they're committed to the core knowledge educational program. Plan for evaluating pupil performance, that meets standards, and we didn't have any comments in that area. Budget and finance, we gave that a partially meets based on student enrollment, funding for SPED services, as well as grant funding, and the need for that, some of that needing to come through to meet the budget that was submitted. Governance meets standards with no comments. Employee, that meets standards, and we're pleased to see that they have a program in place to ensure that teachers are licensed within 2 years of their hiring, and they will all be 100% highly qualified. Insurance meets standards with no comments. Parent and community involvement, that section meets standards with no comments. Enrollment policy meets standards. The comment that we had in that section is that they would do a lottery annually for wait list for students if they were over the number of students that they were going to put in a grade. And we recommended that maybe they do more of a wait list, so that the first year, if you get through the lottery and you're second in line, if in the next year, if you ended up being in the lottery, if you ended up 10th in line, you feel like you've taken a step backwards. So we just put that comment in there. Transportation and food service meet standards. While they're not going to be offering transportation or food services, the comment we had in that section is that due to their location, they are close to several other schools in the district, and we just requested that maybe they look at start and end times so we're not creating a lot of traffic around Union and Lexington. Facilities meet standards. Our only comment there was to add a specific security plan. Under waivers, that met standards with no comments. Student discipline, expulsion, or suspension, that section met standards. We noted there that there's only, expulsion is only mandatory in cases of having a firearm on campus, not for serious violations in the building. So just a comment there if they didn't want to have that in their expulsion section. Serving students with special needs, we put partially meets based on the SPED program, just making sure they have the resources they needed available there and the funding available. And then dispute resolution met standards with no comments. So that is our evaluation report. Any questions for the DAC or my fellow committee members?
We'll start, actually, we'll come back.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Valley. I'm sure we'll probably have a few questions. Would like to go first? Ms. Van Meer.
Thank you. Dr. Valley, I wanted to say before we start with the questions, I wanted to commend you on the organization of your application. It was, you know, when we do these things, we all do them in different ways, but the thing that I do is I sit down with the state statute book and go through, and it was well organized, and it was very easy for me to follow it. So I really appreciated the work that went into it. And I also wanted to say to the people here tonight, whether or not we end up working together and we approve this application, or if we don't approve this application, I wanted to say just thank you to you and the folks on the board who actually took the time to do all of this work and put it together. Many people have ideas, but not all of them are expressed, and quite often there is no work put behind them, so they simply are ideas. And so I just wanted to say thank you for coming forth in the community and doing your best to try to address what you see as a need.
Well, thank you very much. I had an incredible group of people on the board that pulled together, everybody giving their strengths to make that product, and I think I attribute what you said, the organization of the product, to all of these years in defense contracting. It's the same game played the same way.
Understood. Yes, understood. It's recognized. Thank you. I did want to ask you about something that the DAC noted. I have a few questions throughout here, but I'll start with one about qualifications for teaching staff. And I saw in your application, and also saw that the DAC had a question about teachers who aren't highly qualified and moving toward licensure, some of those who aren't licensed. The DAC said that you intended to hire only highly qualified teachers. I wanted to make a distinction. Does that mean people who are well qualified, or does that mean that you were looking at the standard of what No Child Left Behind used to be, that those specific standards for what it meant to be highly qualified?
I'm looking at the standard, or we're looking at the standards Colorado defines it. So that means the sufficient scores on the exam and a subject matter area degree that is necessary to meet the highly qualified standard. Licensure was a separate issue from meeting the highly qualified standard.
Okay, very good, thank you. That helps. Okay, I'll bring the floor back over from there.
Mr. Moreland.
Dr. Valley, we did not meet on the 3rd because I was out of town. I did have an opportunity to look at the application. I'll echo Mrs. compliments on the organization. I want to get right to the issue of grant funding. You said that you're prepared to talk about how you might address that. I kind of come from a budget world, and your budget looks really skinny, which is not a bad thing. But can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure, I'm actually going to let Aaron Salt tackle that issue because Aaron's been involved in most of that.
Hi, Aaron.
How's it going?
Got your sidekick with you?
I do have my sidekick with me. I was leaving and he started tearing up. He's like, no, I want to come. I said, you want to go sit through a meeting? He goes, yeah. Come on.
Kids are always welcome, so that's
So Rick and I sat down earlier today once we got the news last night, and we said we really need to at least take a quick stab at massaging the budget a little bit to see where we can make up some ground. A couple of the items that we mentioned were curriculum changes. One of the things that we had in our budget was Capturing Kids Heart program, which is quite expensive to get off the ground. One of the things that we've talked about as a board is actually partnering with a group called Open Sky, who has a character education program, and so we're going to partner with them, and we're going to be a pilot for them essentially, working with the Core Knowledge. They've actually talked to the Core Knowledge Foundation and seeing how they can work their character education program into the Core Knowledge program, and so we're going to run sort of as a pilot for them with the Core Knowledge approach. With them, and so that's going to be actually a free cost to us. So that's $25,000 savings roughly in year one, just with that. So there's some curriculum changes that we can massage through there. Another option that we have is push for more classes in year one. Our initial budget was set up for 2-round kindergarten, and we are close to having enough registrants or intents for 4 classes. So we are seeing some greater interest than what we were expecting to start with the 2-round school. So there's some options to beef up some of our younger classes to help bring in some extra revenue. Another item is we had a 2% budget contingency written down, and so we can drop that contingency a little bit in the budget to help make up some of the ground. And some of the fixtures that we'll need for the school, we've talked about, Rick and I actually have a meeting with our property management company that we're going to be getting our facility through, and talking to them about trying to finance some stuff through them, see if we can roll that into some of the building costs. So those are some of the items that we've looked at a really high level. I mean, we're less than 24 hours since we got the news, so it's a quick stab, but those are the kind of things that we're looking at right now.
So it's the old reduce expenditures and increase revenues trick, huh?
That it is.
But don't run away. I have one question about, it looks like from your application that you were pretty dependent upon a $215,000 grant for your startup year. How are you going to manage that?
So with really high level budget cuts that budget massaging that we did earlier today, we got that piece down to right around 100,000 or less than 100,000. So we were able to cut, based off of those kinds of changes that we were talking about, we were able to cut close to $100,000 from the year one budget, and trying to finance that out over a couple of years instead of trying to pay for it all up front.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I'd like to amplify just a little bit. I actually was up at about 2 o'clock Colorado time this morning to get on an airplane to come back here from Florida for this meeting, after working a couple of 14-hour days down there, so it's been a joy this week. So I didn't have much of an opportunity to look at what was going on the budget side. I was on a plane while these guys were tackling it. I would like to let everyone know on the board, it's our intention to work that, get real numbers, continue to chase some of the other contingencies that we have in less than a day. We're not going to make a solid commitment to anything, but we can send a revised budget in prior to the December 8th meeting that doesn't show the grant money and shows how we're going to pull things together. If we have to raise student enrollments in certain areas in order to cover that, then that's what we will do. But I think that we have a strategy.
And I certainly understand that. This is very short notice.
Right.
Ms. Gold? Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to find something on here. Is anyone else ready to go? trying to find something in the application I'm trying to refer to, because all I have is a page number in my notes. Go ahead.
Fill in a little bit. Did I hear you say that you're now approaching 400 intents?
That's correct. We had 399 as of 5:30 today.
Give me a sense of how that's trended. I mean, has it?
I think Rick actually has the numbers, and we presented that trend line at the board meeting on the 3rd.
I'm
but
sorry.
We've got some up-to-date changes since then. Rick, do you want to tackle that?
So when we submitted, and I apologize, we haven't kind of done a nice, neat line chart for you on that. It's been fun to watch the numbers change, though. This morning, the actual number was 392. So we had 7 of them today since we did our summary for the day. So the number that I believe we gave you guys at the, I still have it here. Prior to the last meeting, he gave you a number that I believe was 325 last meeting. So, since the 3rd, so we're looking at 2 weeks, we've added all this. So it's definitely moving. And I do have a few copies, if you want them, of the chart that shows like how many of them are coming from what source, as far as like homeschool or different schools within the district or not within the district. And also I have a summary of where they come from as far as the percentage in district versus adjacent total, which by the way is 96%.
I did see that in the application itself, so I appreciate that, but I was interested to see it.
Yeah, they're definitely moving.
Ms. Van Mayer?
Okay, thank you for your patience. I found it. My notes had on page 47 of your application, this is about organizational structure. And it's talking about being organized in accordance with the following organizational plan. There's a second bullet on here that says the principal reports to the board and is responsible for the following: hiring, managing, and evaluating the administrative staff, which will include academic directors and a business manager and other necessary administrators. Can you explain to me what academic directors are? And I'm trying to make direct tiebacks to the budget and trying to understand the staffing model. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, the intent was the board, this board in particular, doesn't feel like we have either the available time or the expertise to necessarily be day-to-day managers of the functions associated with the school. So the expectation was that the principal, given the fact that we're dealing with a charter school, that we do have budget issues in the first couple of years, that the principal might be reliant on getting help on a day-to-day or semi-regular basis. For dealing with the issues, we're purchasing curricula from other companies. We're instantiating those curricula in the school. All of these have associated costs. There's a lot of purely business-related function that goes into running the curricula that we have in mind. And so those positions were called out in there as something that the principal might use to assist them, because on a day-to-day basis, the board members will not be able to assist.
And I assume those folks are included in your salary figures and all of that information?
They are included in the budget that Rick has submitted.
For future years, I mean, we do not have an academic director of any kind in the first couple of years. We have a principal and an assistant principal,
Right.
and a business manager. These are really the main 3 administrators in the school. And so we aren't anticipating academic directors of any kind until we get further downstream.
That's what I thought I saw. So that's where I was wondering if there was a disconnect, if there was another place that they were referred to and I didn't see it. So you're suggesting that you don't need the academic directors at first, it's after you have more students?
More grades, more students. The intention for the school is to expand year for year, grade for grade. So that means that you'll be expanding into other curricula appropriate for middle school and high school as you go down the road. So yeah, that problem becomes more complicated as the years advance.
Okay. And my other question was about differentiation. I know we saw that in what CDE returned to us, their comments about it, and we heard from a parent tonight who talked about differentiated instruction, so for kids. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the plans and how will you go about providing differentiated or individual instruction?
Well, let's break that into two pieces. The goal, as set by the board, is that we'll do skill level grouping as appropriate so that students have access to learning at the level that's appropriate for their ability to learn. The details of how that functions day to day, how you move people from classroom to another, etc., it's our intent to leave that in the hands of the principal and staff. That the idea is to put the focus of the board and our intention on interviewing and hiring the right principal with the right vision that matches what we're trying to do to the school, and then letting them, with their expertise, handle the implementation of that in the school system.
Thank you. I also had another question, 2 pages over in the application, on page 49. We're talking about number of board members, manner of selection, vacancies, et cetera, about the board. And I know I read through the bylaws as well, and I know sometimes we put together bylaws, we have a vision, and then as we work through it, there are changes. So I just wondered about this. I was a little bit confused on page 49 about which members are elected and which are appointed. Sometimes it talks about appointed and sometimes it talks about elected. I think I understand the process for election. I was just not clear. Are all the board members, will they be elected, or are there some who will be appointed?
Rick, we settled on all elected.
All elected.
That's right. So the current board members, we only have 5 out of 7 slots available. We were self-organized, of course, and I imagine that until we have a set of parents in place and we can run an election and that kind of stuff, that we'll wind up trying to staff up to 7 board members, and that would be by appointment because we just don't have the infrastructure in place. But with the infrastructure in place, the intention is all board members to be elected.
Very good. I think so. And I think part of this was in where we're talking about the board appoints someone who has to resign and there's a replacement, and then they're for part of an appointed term. So I think it's just, I think it was just my confusion in reading it. It appeared to me that you wanted all of the board members to be elected.
We do.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Johnson?
Well, so glad that you're back, and so glad to see all of these people here again. And thank you, Dak, for your report. I was really disappointed to find out or to hear that CDE had not approved your application for the grant. And I'm sure you know that that is rarely done. They generally do. And so I would be dishonest to say that raised some to not say that raised some concerns in my mind. So I'm hoping that when you return with a more expansive budget, that you can also address some of the areas that they found lacking in the grant application in terms of substance.
I've already made contact with CDE today, and it's a scheduling matter right now. They've said that they're happy to walk through the scoring criteria in our application and tell us how they made those scores. People who are far more experienced in this area than I have said that they were surprised not only for New Summit, but for other applications that had gone in this year for startup grants that also didn't receive them despite having strong grant applications. So there's something going on, whether it's budget related, whether it's a change in focus, maybe their scoring system is new and they're not as familiar with it. There's something that seems to have taken the experienced folks by surprise as well. So we'll try and track that down. I don't know if there's an appeal, if there is something like that, but at the very least, Aaron and I are already trying to set up a time that we can go up to Denver and sit down and walk through that grant application, because I certainly think that it met the criteria you would expect to receive a startup grant, and I'd like to know what it is that they had a hard time with.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll be looking forward to that, and I appreciate you making that effort, and I would expect you would make that effort. And just another quick, in regards to the idea with hiring principals, et cetera, later on, I note that there are some of the same faces that were here with Capstone Academy. And again, I'm just curious, do you anticipate that there will be, that you'll be interviewing Mr. Olson, or there'll be some of the similar?
No, the fact that there are some of the same faces here for Capstone is a testament to the fact that some people associated with Capstone were looking for a charter school alternative. New Summit, and I think that we tried to make this point, but I don't want to overemphasize it nor cause any discontentment. New Summit made a clean and complete break with Capstone Academy in the spring. We're not associated with them, we're not affiliated with them, we don't have any connections or ties to them. We've re-executed, asked our parents that were interested in Capstone to re-execute expressions of intent for New Summit if they were interested. So no, we don't have anything to do with them.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Mrs. Bull?
I just want to say, first of all, Mr. Pinion, all of our children are brilliant until they become teenagers. Just kidding. But I just wanted to thank all of you for coming. I assume that, like you said, you guys split from Capstone, and unlike Capstone, which was more of a money-making enterprise, I trust that none of you are making money and you're just doing this because of your love of education and for your children. And so that says a lot, that you're willing to put all this time and effort into something that you are passionate about. And so,
Well, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Anyone else? Ms. Samuels?
I have a couple more. I am actually on page 63 of the application for those of you following along. This is a quick clarification question. It's no problem. In an application this long, I think we had 187 pages, something like that. There are bound to be little things, and this is one of them, and I wanted to ask you about it. It's the paragraph about founding families. The last sentence says no families will be designated a founding family after 1,2017 if the school is approved. Did you mean
Yes.
January 2017,
No.
or was there a specific date? I wondered.
I don't believe that that's correct. That's got to be a glitch.
Yeah, there's actually 2 days.
Excuse me, could you come to the mic, please, because this is being recorded? Thanks, Rick.
Sorry, there are actually 2 days. The first date is if they want to use founding family status to ensure placement for their kids, they have to have their founding family hours in by March 1. If they have preschoolers and want to use founding family status to protect their kids from lottery for future years, they have to have all of their hours in by August 1st. So there's 2 dates. That was absolutely a typo, I'm so sorry about that.
No worries. I just wanted to clarify it. It's no problem. Like I said, it's a very lengthy application. There are a lot of details, so.
There are, and let me, that brings up something that I wanted to mention with regard to the DAC comment on enrollment lottery. The requirement that any students applying other than founding family or legacy students up to a maximum of 20% be handled through a lottery was actually a requirement attached to the CDE grant. Part of the conditions for the receipt of that grant. If we are not receiving the CDE grant, we're not bound by a lottery approach. And